first two Big Ten matchups of the year are massive implications in both. You talk about the Northwestern Illinois game in Ireland. We think about or excuse me, what did I say? Illinois, Northwestern Nebraska game in Ireland. You think about how big that is for Scott Frost. I think it's also big for Pat Fitzgerald. We've talked with our Northwestern media guys, and they don't seem to think that Pat Fitzgerald's on the hot seat. You and I both know he's not. I don't know how many bad seasons he'd have to have. I think another bad season, people start to get antsy because last year was really bad. But it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back this year. And you just look at Nebraska with Scott Frost. We know his clock is ticking. We thought it might have ran out last year. I've said it before, and I think you're going to be talking about this at nauseum in the coming weeks as we count down the days to week 0. That game is huge. I mean, he loses that game, Mark. I think the only let me word it this way: the only way he gets relieved of his duties mid-season, I think, would include a loss in week 0. Because if you win week 0, I just don't see the season derailing early. Now, the back half of the schedule, there's some tough games, as you know, including that Iowa game, which is in Iowa City. The only game that's not been sold out, by the way. We can talk about that in a moment. But that's such a huge game for Scott Frost, and it's just going to be great to see football in Ireland. Because wasn't this game scheduled in 2020? Am I correct in saying that?
Well, the game that Nebraska and Illinois played was scheduled to be played in Ireland, that they played in Champaign.
Right. Okay. So I got so it was Illinois. But yeah, just a massive game. And, now with fall camp starting tomorrow, is it start at the same day for everybody? I just don't even know, Mark.
No,
is it?
It does not.
So it starts for Iowa. For anybody that doesn't know, it does start tomorrow for Iowa. So I know that's an exciting time for a lot of young prospects who have never been a part of camp. Iowa does send its players to a hotel. I know not all universities do that, but this is literally, that's why they call it fall camp. It's literally, and only a select number of guys get invited to fall camp. So it's going to be intriguing. But back to those first two games, the Northwestern Nebraska game, massive implications. And then that Penn State Purdue game, we've talked about that at nauseam. That's a bigger game for Iowa fans to follow. I said it last week. We talked about Purdue last week. They beat Penn State week 1, and that's a Thursday night game. Purdue, in my book, becomes the favorite to win the West. Not saying they will at that point, but they become the favorite, and I'm not predicting that they'll win. But boy, that's going to be what a start to the college football season. Because, week 0 is going to be great, but it doesn't really feel like it gets going until week 1. And to get a Big Ten game on a Thursday night is just huge.
Yeah, so when I sized up the schedule last year after the Nebraska loss to Illinois, and I rarely, if maybe have never done this, I declared Nebraska's season over after they lost to Illinois. I looked at the rest of the schedule and that they could not beat Illinois. I said, this team's done. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to a bowl. And from a logistical standpoint, looking at schedule, personnel for Nebraska, I don't think that this game is as critical because the schedule's lighter. But
sure,
to be 3-9, to be playing a team that only won one game in the Big Ten like Nebraska did, that was a 49-point game last year, just with everything outside of just sizing up the rest of the schedule and doing the math, it's a larger game. There's more at stake for Nebraska. They do have to beat Northwestern. If they can't beat Northwestern, I don't know how to figure out this football team.
And I understand we're looking at this through the lens of, Northwestern is a 3-9 team last year. Talent wise, they're probably, can we agree they're probably 13th or 14th in the Big Ten in talent? Is that being facetious for this roster? I don't have talent.
Oh, sure.
I know some people rank those talent, they rank talent in the Big Ten, but I'm guessing they're 13th or 14th in the Big Ten. But if I'm a Nebraska fan, and I know we got Nebraska fans watching, I am so nervous for that. Like that game, to me, Pat Fitzgerald playing with house money. Because as we just got done saying, his job ain't gonna be online regardless of what happens in that game. You just got done getting blown out by this team last year, a team that didn't win any other Big Ten games all year. everybody in the I think every other coach in the Big Ten, with the exception maybe being a guy like James Franklin, who's equally as pompous. I think every other coach in the Big Ten dislikes Scott Frost. So there's already reason and motivation to want to beat him. So I just think it's a dangerous, dangerous game for Nebraska, but both teams have reason to get up for it.
If I'm reading the lean on both coaches per Big Ten Media Days, I think that Scott Frost is a bit uptight. And again, I'm not the person that looks into hearts and minds and tries to come to conclusions. I typically don't do that. But there were things said. I don't read faces. I don't do anything like that. There were actually things stated by Scott Frost that would lead you to believe that they are going to be on edge for this game. This is a business trip. He said that over and over, business trip. We didn't earn this. This is a business trip. And that's great. Obviously, you're there to play football, and especially it being a conference game, win the game. I get that, but it just sounds like it had a feel like pre-Super Bowl. If you're into the NFL and you see these Super Bowl documentaries where they highlight both teams and the way they approach the Super Bowl, and sure, there's a point in which you got to get down to business, but where typically the team that's a little looser enjoys the experience, enjoys some of the events, and then maybe about 4 days before they get locked in, while the other team's on edge for like 12 or 13 days, white knuckling the entire experience and
right.
Going through 2-a-days, and then Pat Fitzgerald made the comment that our student athletes, almost all of them, have not experienced a trip to Europe before, so we're going to take advantage of it. We want to win the game. We're going to do everything we can to win the game, but we're going to experience the culture and the events and everything. Like, they're going to go over there and have fun.
I have not made my selection for this game yet, nor any of the games, but I'm leaning Northwestern right now.
I'm starting to talk myself into an upset too.
Here's the deal. Everything you just said, and you think that as of right now, and I've seen people rank Big Ten coaches. I'm sure you have. I'd have to go back and look at your rankings. But where does Scott Frost rank as far as Big Ten coaches out of 14 teams right now? Right now. Not projecting.
I ranked him last.
Okay, 14th. Where does Pat Fitzgerald rank in Big Ten coaches?
First or second.
Okay, first. So we potentially have the best coach in the Big Ten versus the worst coach in the Big Ten. And then you think about the fact that it's a week 0 game in Ireland. In Ireland. Like, variable in the fact that it's overseas, the fact that we're talking about pressure, right? We're talking about tremendous pressure. Like, all the variables that you need sound coaching. Those are the variables at play here, Mark. That's what's so intriguing about this. Like, just the matchup in general with all those circumstances, you're probably going to fall. If it's an even matchup, you're absolutely, at least that's how I'm going to make my selection. I'm going to fall back on the better coach. And there's not a question. Like, this isn't even a conversation right now. We're talking about potentially the best coach versus the worst coach. Now, the talent gap is something that's there. I get that. So, but man, that's why I'm starting to feel the way you are. I might be going with the Wildcats week 0.
And this is why I question Scott Frost. This is a 5th season, correct? Are we on year 5?
That sounds right.
Yeah, we're on year 5. 2018 was his first year. 5th season. So he is now addressing, let's say, in particular, special teams. That's just one example. That's one example of many. He's now talking a lot about a special teams coordinator that he's finally bringing in and addressing special teams. For example, this team started last year by having a veteran player, really good player, Cam Taylor-Britt, muff a punt inside the 5-yard line that he should have not been. Like, he was fielding the ball at like the 2-yard line.
Right.
And that led to a safety, which led to the short kick for the Illinois touchdown to go up 9-0. So that's how their season started. Their season ended with a lead in the 4th quarter against Iowa, early 4th quarter, blocked punt, special teams gaff leads to the Iowa comeback. They lose. Yep. In between a number, Michigan State in particular, punt return for a touchdown, Michigan. I just don't think that it would be difficult, I think, for myself, for the audience, or for yourself to think of a head coach who entered a program and didn't show immediate results that then turned out to be a success. That was a utter failure for 4 years and then kicked it in, and then they had a successful stint at that school. I cannot think of that example.
And I think it comes down to this. I know there are some people early on. Was it R.J. Young of Fox? Somebody predicted. I saw this graphic on Fox a long time ago, Mark, that somebody predicted Nebraska to be West favorites this year, which I think is, at the time, I remember thinking, talent wise, we've never questioned they do okay there, and they've done pretty well in the transfer portal. Although I think some of that has screamed desperation. But yeah, like the schedule this year certainly would make you at least see a glimmer of hope as it relates to record and bowl projections. I think what we have, they're not going 3-9 this year. Okay, they ain't going 3-9 this year. I think we can all accept that.